Welcome to Mid-Maryland Votes with Mark and Ethan, two guys with different viewpoints who actually enjoy talking to people who might actually disagree with us. This show's like your favorite old school barbershop, full of strong opinions, even stronger colorful characters, and the unmistakable sting of sea breeze. The conversations get lively, but they stay respectful, and we always leave with a better appreciation for each other. Today we're joined by Chuckie Johnson. He's a candidate for Washington County Sheriff with nearly 20 years in law enforcement and 26 years in the volunteer fire service. Chuckie brings a boots-on-the-ground perspective to public safety, leadership, and what real accountability looks like. Now let's get into it. Welcome to Mid-Maryland Votes. I am your host, Mark Flynn. With me is my co-host,
Ethan Lowen.
and we are very blessed today to have Chuckie Johnson. He's a candidate for Washington County Sheriff. He's going to come and share his vision for accountability, transparency, and safer streets. Whether you're backing him or just learning more, local leadership matters, and we are here to help you make those decisions. Thanks for tuning in to Mid-Maryland Votes, where real conversations still count. Follow, like, and share, and keep this dialogue going. Chuckie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? We know you're running for sheriff in Washington County, but how about on a personal level? Can you tell us a little something about yourself?
So I was pretty much born and raised in Smithsburg. I still live here. My wife and I have 30 acres up on the mountain just outside of the town. I have two kids. Both of them are adults now, but my son is a paramedic for Washington County. His wife is a paramedic in the county. My daughter is getting ready to ship off to Frostburg here in a couple weeks. She just graduated.
Frostburg State. I bet you're,
Yeah,
as a daddy, you're worried about that. That's a party school up
Absolutely.
there, bro.
Absolutely.
I got one
we
going
have-
to UM. Believe me, I know what you're talking about.
It's, and Frostburg is one of those, it's just far enough away, but still close enough that if I need to get there quickly, I guess I can.
Yes, you can. and you bring the heat with you, huh?
I'm going to do my best.
All right, there you go. So, you're running on a platform where you're going to modernize law enforcement in Washington County, which I'm all for. Can you give us a concrete example of something you believe is outdated and how you'd fix it?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of examples. We could probably spend most of the night talking about it, but my current position in my employment now is I'm in charge of the training. So I get to attend all the most modern training, and I teach all the most modern things. And I'm privy enough to make my way around the Quad State or Quad County region to help teach at these academies and get to be part of and understand and teach the most current trends in policing. And there's a lot of legacy things left over in not just this county. It's a police thing in general. We hate two things: change and the way things stay the same. But
Not the truth.
at this point in time, the status quo is the demise of police work, and we'll be able to bring along the modern approaches to the way we do things.
And when you say that when you refer to status quo changes, etc., obviously, especially over the last 10 years, a lot of people have been saying that things do need to change. And then as time has gone on, more and more people said, well, hold on a second, maybe we've gone a little too far with some of these. How do you plan to balance out kind of these two competing forces in our society?
Well, it's really not as complicated as what they want to make it seem, because no matter who is involved, as soon as they become a victim or when they actually become a part of the problems because they have to put themselves in a place that maybe some of these issues are occurring, all of a sudden everybody wants to see the change because they do not want to be a victim. They do not want to walk around a bunch of bags and things sitting on the street when they're trying to attend a ball game or go to the permits office, things like that. Right? So while you may have a few who are loud, collectively, everybody wants to see the change. They want to see some order established within the community they live.
With violent crime is on the uptake all across the county, but especially in Hagerstown. And we're seeing a real big rise in fentanyl. Right now, Hagerstown, you're 60 times more likely to be the victim of violent crime in Hagerstown. And that's affecting Washington County as a whole, which is the position you're running for as the sheriff of Washington County. So, besides increasing patrols, what is your response to voters' concerns in those areas? How are you going to address those?
So, if you didn't know, I spent 12 years of my career in Hagerstown. I worked in Hagerstown for 12 years. I learned
On
a
the
lot.
Hagerstown Police Department, PD?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay.
And I learned a lot, and I had a great time policing in Hagerstown. I made a lot of good friends, a lot of good contacts throughout the community, and the true residents of the city are just like you and I. No matter which part of the city they're from, those people want to have peace and quiet in their neighborhoods. What we see is a lot of transient offenders and a lot of transient crime. And I have a plan. And when you hear me refer to we, nothing that any of us do, we get to do by ourselves, right? Or we're able to do by ourselves. One thing about me, if I was to be elected as sheriff, I have a team of people who are coming along with me. A team of experienced people, a team of commanders, SWAT guys, a lot of well-rounded individuals that will be part of making these changes. So it's a team approach, no matter what. But one thing is, I like to call it the hometown initiative. When we have these transient offenders, the simplest way to explain it would be if you think about like drug court, mental health court, veterans court, that kind of thing. Those people sign a contract and they come to an agreement with the courts to do X, Y, and Z in lieu of incarceration or a stringent probation program. Right? So through the hometown initiative, the plan is through the sheriff's office, we will facilitate finding a relative, friends, family, whoever it may be, to, for lack of better words, essentially we'll say take custody of. Right? So they'll accept responsibility for them, for the transient offender. We will make sure that those people are able to perform that function, because we all know that treatment for all kinds of ailments is you have much greater success with a family or friend support group than you do just individually in an area you don't know. So if we're able to find those people, and we will facilitate relocating them back to where they came from to help with their treatment. What that also does on the flip side is frees up the resources of the county so that we can provide that to the actual county residents. So we're not wasting taxpayer dollars and community funds that are donated to various organizations on people who aren't from Washington County.
And that great idea. And many people have noted that the transient community, particularly is because of the prison that is close to Hagerstown, and when people get out, how routinely they have then stayed in Hagerstown or Washington County, despite having come from other parts of the state. However, even with that being said, the difference in the level of crime between Hagerstown and every other community in Washington County, like literally communities that are 5 miles or less away, and just the night and day difference in the crime. What do you attribute that to? Is it primarily the transient community? Are there other factors that have come into play?
We have a lot of transient community, but there's no punishment in this county. So if you take a look at press releases from all of the county agencies and you see the work that they do, and the men and women of law enforcement in Washington County collectively do a very good job from all the agencies involved. But that's where it stops. Our prosecutors are very weak, and they are not punishing the people the way they need to be punished. If you look at if you go back, if you have time, take a look at my Facebook page or website. I have some information on there, but there was recently.
We'll provide. By the way, Chuck, we'll provide a link to your Facebook page in the comments section of this video.
Okay, thank you. So if you when you take a look at that, but you'll see a few months back there was some deputies, or the court case went in front of the judge. There were some deputies shot at. Not only were they shot at, bullets went through the neighbor's mobile home, and the lady was fearful for her life. Essentially, they were going to plead this down to 4 years of incarceration. That is the agreement the state's attorney's office worked out.
And why is that? What do you attribute that to? Is it a political ideology, or is there another reason for it?
I wish I could give you that answer. I have no idea why somebody would not want to punish, especially violent offenders. If we want to go down the rabbit hole that when we talk about CDS and narcotics and crimes, things like that, that it's a mental health thing, and that's a whole nother story. And we can talk about that. But when we talk about violent crimes, there is no reason whatsoever to not prosecute violent crimes, gun crimes. And I'll speak on the city side of things more so, I guess, than the county. But you have a lot of crime that the victims were somehow involved with the suspect, and those victims aren't necessarily pillars of the community themselves, so they don't want to cooperate. But the city has surveillance cameras essentially everywhere, and you can put a functioning weapon in these people's hands, and instead of giving the mandatory minimum sentence of the 5 years for possessing a firearm for a prohibited person, they'll plea it down to nothing or drop the case because they say they don't have a victim. We don't need a victim when I have surveillance and shell casings of this person firing a weapon, right? Like they don't take the opportunities that are presented. I wish I could tell you why they don't want to prosecute crime, because I have no idea. It makes no sense to me. But if you look at we had in Frederick County had a deputy who was shot at after a short foot chase. The deputy ended up shooting the suspect as well, but fortunately the guy lived. And he went in front of the judge, and he ultimately ended up getting, I believe it was 20 years. And that was for shooting at one deputy. We have four deputies shot at, and a civilian who had no stakes in the game whatsoever. And we want to drop this down to 4 years.
That's ridiculous. Washington County has some very rural areas as well. What is going to be your approach to policing these different areas? Because you've got Hagerstown, which is the biggest city in the county. You have some smaller towns and cities that do have a decent population and also have some crime issues. Then you have some really rural folks out there. What's your plan on addressing all of those aspects of Washington County?
So if you look at any of the IACP models, things like that, Washington County, overall, a lot of staffing, I don't quote me on this number, but it's in the 120s. And I know that they're working on increasing those staffing numbers. However, that's not quite enough people, because of that 120 people, of course, the majority of them are spread out through various specialized units and things like that. So your patrol sector, your patrol operations is much smaller than your 120 people. So obviously you need to increase the staffing, but you can also realign the sectors and distribute the manpower that you currently have a little differently. I work in Frederick County, and when I was in patrol, I patrolled the northern part of the county. When the northern part of the county was from the Washington County line in Cascade all the way down to the Carroll County line and headed towards New Windsor.
That's a lot of territory.
It's a lot of territory. We covered that with 2 people. And
wow.
Call volume wise, more than enough people to handle it. Geography, we're operationally ineffective. And you have a lot of
patrol checks. Patrol checks are really tough when you're patrolling that much area.
Correct. And even lights and sirens, you're 35 minutes from one end to the other. And Washington County's not quite that bad because the size of the mileage of the county, but You do have those rural areas, like you said, and not saying that you can dedicate a single deputy or a pair of deputies to that area, but if you relocate them throughout the county strategically, where you have overlapping coverage that allows for them to have a quicker response to that area, and you have to supervise these guys to maintain beat integrity. I can't have a guy who's assigned to the Smithsburg Cascade region hanging out in Boonesboro or over in Clear Spring, right? And I can't have the guy who's assigned to the Clear Spring Hancock area hanging out in Smithsburg. It doesn't work. A model like that doesn't work. So you have to make sure that your guys are maintaining beat integrity, and that just comes down to the supervisors, assigning those guys that area and making sure they stay in that area.
And even though, as the Washington County Sheriff do not necessarily are not responsible for Hagerstown in the sense that they have their own police department, but there are overlaps in calls where Washington County police officers will go into Hagerstown to assist, is my understanding. And one of the big things that has happened recently is there is this no camping ordinance that is going to take effect fairly soon in Hagerstown in regards to the homeless population. And it's become very controversial, with a lot of people saying it's absolutely necessary in order to help mitigate the crime in Hagerstown. Other people saying that it's inhumane. What is your take on this camping ordinance and the ability to enforce it?
Okay, so first thing I'd like to address is, since I started police work, almost 19 years ago now, there's always been these are city problems, these are county problems. And even up to 7-8 years ago, you could have still made that argument. But today, there are no city problems, county problems. They are a problem, and they need to be addressed by everybody in a team approach, because the city can't handle it. The sheriff's office can't handle the city, right? So they have to work together on this. But there are no longer city-county issues. These are just issues, and they need to be worked on together. As for the no camping ordinance, and you know as well as I do, police in general, and not just locally, this is a national thing, police are horrible at controlling the narrative. We are horrible at getting ahead of information and relaying the message that we're looking for. This camping ordinance is phenomenal. I think it is great, and I think it's going to have a serious effect on the quality of life of the residents of Hagerstown and the visitors of Hagerstown. But let's face it, people don't go to jail for 6 months for dealing fentanyl or shooting at people. So obviously nobody expects anybody to go to jail for 6 months for sleeping on the sidewalk, right? That's not going to happen. But what this does is it's a tool in the toolbox that says, John and Jane Doe are sleeping on the sidewalk, and they collect 5 charges together over the next 2 months. When they go to court, they can combine all those cases together, and then they can sentence them to a mandatory mental health treatment, drug treatment, something of that nature, to help those people get off the street, right? Because a lot of it is a mental health thing. It's a substance abuse issue. However, I will tell you from my experience, that's not the case with everybody. You have the homeless population in Hagerstown who just wants to be homeless. They do not want to follow rules. They don't want to be confined to anything in particular or tied down. They just want to live their life. Unfortunately, the way they live their life affects the quality of life of everybody around them. So those people may end up at some point, and it's not going to happen at 4 or 5 charges. Maybe one day down the road, they've collected enough of them that the judges get tired of seeing them, and they will sentence them for a little while to jail. But the goal is not incarcerating homeless people or incarcerating people with substance abuse issues or mental health issues. The goal is to force them into some sort of treatment program.
And that really is the underlying problem. I mean, the majority of homeless people are either they have mental health issues, but the vast majority have drug and
Yes.
And alcohol addiction issues. I mean, they simply don't want to stay clean. And I think you're right. I think this ordinance will help facilitate or encourage these people to find the help that they need rather than stay on the streets and be harassed by police officers.
Right.
So, I think it's a
And
good ordinance.
those people who are choosing that lifestyle, when they start collecting charges and they're inconvenienced because they either have to go to court or they don't go to court because it's unlikely that we're going to be able to get them a summons or to show up. So they're going to miss it and they'll end up with some warrants and things like that. And they'll have to go in front of get locked up and go in front of the commissioner and process and all that good stuff. It'll become an inconvenience for them that they won't want to be here. So this is a win-win, in the sense of cleaning up the streets and not just, proverbially, like it's literally cleaning up the streets.
And they need it. Hagerstown definitely needs it, especially in the downtown area.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Hey, Chuck, you have a real background in police and even in fire. You've been in service for many, many years to both. Leadership,
Yes.
however, is a different matter. How are you going to lead this department if you're elected into the future, and hold your people accountable? How do you plan on doing that?
You lead by example, and that example is work. And fortunately, and I have a pretty good reputation throughout the law enforcement community and the fire community of when things need to be done, we get in there and do them. I'm a problem solver, and I enjoy solving problems. I enjoy the chaos, and that's where I thrive the best. And I am generally the person who will step up and start taking things over so that we can push things in the right direction. There's leaders and there's supervisors, and let's face it, anybody can fill out an employee evaluation, but it takes a different person to be able to lead a group of people into doing work that nobody really wants to do.
I think your background in training also is very valuable.
I do that in Frederick County, and we have close to 200 officers. And yes, there's another person, two other people in my unit. One of them playing a dual role as a technology lieutenant. But ultimately, there's two of us right now facilitating all of this for the entire sheriff's office in Frederick County. And not only that, we have other responsibilities as well. And, I travel around to all the local academies because Frederick County doesn't have their own police academy. So we use Washington, Carroll, Frederick City, and Howard County. And, I go to those academies and assist with instruction for various topics and, specialized things that they need help with.
And in regards to, your opponent, as it stands right now, is the current sheriff, Sheriff Albert. And
Yes.
From what I have heard, he's highly regarded and respected. I guess from your point of view, and I don't think it's unnecessarily bashing your opponent. Just in an election, the voters are tasked with picking the best of the options. So, from your perspective, what is it that you think that Sheriff Albert is lacking in or is doing not as well that you would bring?
The legacy. I mean, and I've met Sheriff Albert one time right before I officially announced. I asked him if he would go to lunch with me. We had a great lunch, and he is an incredibly nice guy. And that's really my only encounter with him. And I told him at that time, this race isn't about him. This is about Washington County is hit a point where it's kind of a pivotal moment. If you want to affect change, you have to do it now. If we don't have another term, we're going to be so far behind. We're already behind the eight ball. If we wait another 4 years, we're going to be in real trouble. And I don't know there'll be a lot of turnaround after that. But yeah, there's the policing just in this county is still status quo. We're working on the 20th year of the previous administration.
Just to sum up, our interview, you definitely have a lot of experience. You have a lot going on for you, and we're definitely excited to see you enter in the race. Is there any final thoughts you'd like to share with us or share with our viewers or possible voters as far as your run for this position?
Yeah, listen, this I understand why people wait until they retire to run a campaign because it's a lot to work a full-time job, manage, the household stuff and run a campaign. But not that a retired person doesn't want to do a good job. This isn't a retirement job, though. It's a difference of if I was to get elected, I can't retire. So this is a gamble for me. I would have to be fortunate enough not only to win once, but I'd have to win at least twice before I could reach a retirement and draw a pension. So this is a gamble for me. But I'm willing to take that gamble because we need to see the change. But this is not a retirement job, and we need to put the work in to make the changes, and that requires work on the end of the sheriff and the people under him. And that's where bringing a team along and using the team that's already at the sheriff's office to bring them on board to really affect change. There's a lot of talent at the sheriff's office, and if they were serving under a leader that would allow them to make the changes and do the things they want to do, you could see some serious changes throughout the agency and throughout the county, and in terms of policing.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Chuckie Johnson, for joining us today. Chuckie Johnson is a candidate for Washington County Sheriff. He's here tonight sharing his vision for accountability, transparency, and safer streets. Whether you're backing him or just learning more about local leadership, it matters. Thanks for tuning in to Mid-Maryland Votes, where real conversations still count. Like, follow, and share to keep the dialogue going. On behalf of my co-host,
Ethan Lowen,
we just want to thank you for joining us. Please smash that follow button, and we'll see you next time on Mid-Maryland Votes.
Thank you, guys.
Big thanks to Chuckie Johnson for joining us and sharing his perspective on public safety and leadership. At Mid-Maryland Votes, we're proud to keep these conversations in the middle, where different voices meet, ideas get exchanged, and the goal is understanding, not arguing. It's where informed decisions start and where communities like ours find common ground.